Gordon, I think your first meeting is going to... We're good. I'm good.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the February 28th, 2012 meeting of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission is made up of 9 members, 9 residents of the City of Troy, who are nominated by the Mayor and approved by the majority of the City Council, usually for a term of 3 years. This evening, we will begin with a roll call.
Mr. Edmonds?
Here?
Mr. Hudson?
Here.
Mr. Krent?
Here.
Mr. Maxwell?
Here.
Mr. Zanziga?
Here.
Mr. Shepke?
Here.
Mr. Schultz?
Here.
Mr. Stratt?
Here.
Mr. Tagle?
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Next item on the agenda is approval of tonight's agenda. Mr. Schultz?
Mr. Chairman, I would recommend or request a modification to the agenda, adding an item 4A for the recognition of
Take care
Mr.
of the
Ullman.
phone. I can't hear it. There's a phone ringing.
Who's phone? Who's phone?
Back there in the coat.
I think it's you, Mr.
I think it's been you, Mr. Stratt.
I'm sorry, Mr. Schultz. You go ahead, please.
I would like to add an item 4A, which would be recognition of service for Mr. Ullman and a proclamation that has been written for him.
Okay. Got a second? Support from Mr. Hudson. Will you vote on that motion, please?
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Krent?
Yes.
Mr. Maxwell?
Yes.
Mr. Zanziga?
Yes.
Mr. Shepke?
Yes.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
Mr. Stratt?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes.
All right, the motion passes. We're going to get to that item momentarily. Item number 3 is approval of the minutes of the February 14, 2012 regular meeting. Do we have any changes or additions to those minutes? Mr. Edmonds?
Move to approve as published.
And second, Mr. Schultz. Any discussion? Vote on the motion, please.
Mr. Krent?
Yes.
Mr. Maxwell?
Yes.
Mr. Zanziga?
Yes.
Mr. Shepke?
Yes.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
Mr. Stratt?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes. All right, now we're going to move to the added agenda item, a service commendation for Mr. Ron Ullman. Mr. Ullman? Please, where should have you stand? Maybe at the podium or here?
Probably at the podium would be the best sight line.
We hope you have a speech prepared. After some glowing words. But, whereas Lon Ullman served on the Troy Brownfield Redevelopment Authority for 7 years from April 2001 to April 2008, and was appointed to the Troy Planning Commission in April 2008, serving until December 2011. As a Planning Commissioner, Lon earned certification from Michigan State University Extension, and was the Planning Commission's representative to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And whereas Lon is a builder by trade, achieving his builder's license in 1970, he also has Bachelor of Science degree in Biology. His advocacy for clean water and natural resource protection winning awards from both the Clinton River Watershed Council and the State Advocacy for Clean Water. And whereas Lon has also written grants related to the environment and received approval for 2 grant projects to preserve aquatic habitat and to retain natural features. He also attended Michigan Association of Planners Conference, heading it as most worthwhile and a viable means of keeping up with new trends in the world of municipal planning. And whereas Lon initiated and authored the Wetlands and Natural Features Ordinance, which is intended to protect natural features, including woodlands. The city was very fortunate to have someone with Lon's unique ecological background to work on this vital initiative. And whereas the quality of life the city offers is a result of hard work, planning, sacrifice, and leadership, thanks to Lon, one of Troy's dedicated volunteers, our city quality city services will continue to thrive and are key to making Troy the greatest place to live in the state of Michigan. Now, therefore, be it known that the City of Troy Planning Commission takes this opportunity to express its sincere appreciation and recognition to Lon Ullman for his distinguished service and his many contributions to the betterment of the city through his work on the Troy Planning Commission, and be it further known that by donating his time and talents, Lon has furthered the ideals that contribute to enriching our community. Troy is very fortunate to have citizens like Lon who give so much time and energy to make our community a great place to live, work, play, and raise a family. Congratulations. Thank you very much.
If all of you came to watch this, I have to thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule. Thank you for the kind words. Gentlemen, it's been real pleasure working with all of you. I think we've done some really good things. We have more good things that you can accomplish. And what's been the best part of this experience, it's been an experience where all of us respected each other and respected the people that came in here. It's a little difficult for these residents to come in here and do public speaking in front of a group and everybody's looking at them. And I think we've gone out of our way to make people feel welcome, and we've tried to treat them with kindness. So, and I think that's very commendable to all of you. It's been a great experience, and I hope to come back and see you all again. But thank you very much. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Stratton.
Our guest would like to speak.
Well, that's the next item on the agenda, Mr. Stratton. We're ahead of the curve as usual. Next item is public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to stand up this time? Mrs. Stein, please.
I just will speak from here. I want to say that I really appreciated what Lon said, because it was very serving to this body. I think that people don't appreciate what is going on all the time among people who volunteer hours and hours of their time. And it's not just at the table. You spend time outside working on the various projects that come before you. So I want to appreciate all of you, and I also want to suggest that you present Lon with that in hand.
Oh, of course. Of course. For just a moment, I'll do that. Anyone else this time? Well, we're going to take a 5-minute recess, and we're going to congratulate Lon personally. So we'll be back in 5 minutes.
Don't be going anywhere now.
Oh!
I was going to.
No, I'm just retired. And it's amazing. Wait till you find out how many people do a wonderful
Anything else?
I have a
I know.
What's that for what's the name for the show?
Apparently they were so impressed with your report today that they have to hear it in person. I told them.
That's the real reason.
All right, let's call the meeting back to order together.
I'm not sure.
Now we said goodbye to a member who has done a lot of planning commissions involved in the last few years.
Former judge, township prosecutor. First time I met her, she's like 5'1".
We quite finished. Oh, Phil, is there? If you guys need to do more, I can hold off.
No, I just wanted to know his name.
Okay, all right. I'll make sure we can have that taken care of before we move on. Well, thanks to Lon for all his hard work and dedication these past years. This time I'd like to have a new member this evening. I want to welcome him, Mr. Gordon Shepke. Welcome to the Planning Commission. I'm looking forward to working with you and hearing your input the days ahead. So, welcome.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
Also, we have 2 returning members, Mr. Robert Schultz and Mr. Thomas Stratton. And Mr. Schultz, I must say, I've been involved with the city for, I don't know, 12, 13 years on committees. I haven't met anyone who knows the ordinance as well as you. I think you give this body some real institutional memory with your basic knowledge. And what you bring to the table helps all of us in our decision making, so thank you.
I think that's a nice way of saying I'm the old guy.
Well, I don't mean it that way. Mr. Stratt, you offer so much to us. You're an excellent architect, very creative man. I appreciate your input and everything. I learn something from you every meeting. And thank you for your contribution.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I hope there's good things that you learn.
Yes, sir.
Bad things.
Well, the other things we can't talk about. They're good things. They're about life, but they're good. They're not but they're all good. All right, this is a special use request. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing, a special use request and preliminary site plan review. File number SU 393. Proposed Nashville Touch oil change southeast corner of Rochester Road in Heartland, 1028 Heartland, Section 23, currently zone GB General Business District. And I think I read the one report. Mr. Brannigan. Mr. Brannigan will be doing the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This, as you know, is a site on Rochester Road, just shy of Big Beaver Road, just north of Big Beaver Road, located on the east side of the right-of-way, on a combination of a remainder parcel from the Rochester Road widening project, and then an adjacent property shown there with a single-family home on it. I was just there today, and the single-family home has subsequently been demolished, so it's now gone. The site is leveled and cleared of any obstruction at all. So it's a pretty straightforward site. Pretty wide open. It is zoned general business district, which is our new combination zoning district, which absorbed, as you might remember, our highway service district, and then our old B3, I believe, was the old district's name that was part of this. So this site is immediately north of on the bottom there you can see there's that larger shopping center, and then Mr. Pete on is right south of that. So you'd be familiar with it. It's a parking district, but single-family homes are located just to the north of Heartland. Then you come around here, and there's actually a large multifamily project just over here to give you a little bit of context. In terms of the proposed use, this is one of those cases where we rely on the verbiage in the ordinance where the zoning administrator needs to make a determination how to process a use. You'll remember when we did the new zoning ordinance, we were much more general on the descriptions of use as opposed to our old ordinance, which tried to think of every possible type of land use with extensive lists in every district. The new ordinance is much freer than that, where it just talks about auto service and repair facilities, and talks about auto maintenance and things of that nature. An oil change facility, a quick turnover oil change facility, is not specifically listed as an individual land use in the city of Troy. The closest thing that the zoning administrator and myself determined that it probably should be processed as is an automobile repair facility. Although held to the strict letter of the definition of an automobile repair facility, it doesn't really meet that either, because there it's talking about vehicles left overnight for more extensive repairs. The closest thing it's probably actually, in terms of its use day to day, the closest thing it probably is near to is a car wash, really, which is also a special use in this district. Now, all that being said, it makes sense, therefore, to determine that it's a use like or similar to those other uses and should be processed as a special land use. Now, you'll know in the zoning ordinance we also have, within Article 6, we have specific use requirements for very specific uses. So like a daycare facility, if you're going to do a daycare, here's the daycare rules. The other uses that I mentioned, a car wash and an automobile repair facility, do have those rules in various sections of Article 6. 6.26, I believe, is where we talk about automobile repair. If you read those automobile repair rules, they really don't apply to a facility like this. And those two sections, the special use requirement that's in Article 4 describing this potential use in this district, and the specific use requirements of Article 6, are not necessarily mutually exclusive. They don't have to be related. So what I believe the course of action we take is that we process this as a special use, but we don't have any specific use requirements from Article 6 that actually apply to a fast oil change operation. That'll become important a little later down the road. But we'll rely more heavily on the general special use requirements as we process this project, and just in our general specific site plan review requirements. And you'll find that this project does meet or exceed just about everything in the zoning ordinance, and it is a project that ultimately I'm going to recommend approval of.
And can I piggyback on that? We're seeing more oil change places, so I think a strategy may be, when we adopted the ordinance, we knew that with a new document there was going to be some housekeeping that we're going to have to deal with, not just typos, but just things that maybe sounded like a good idea when we adopted the ordinance, but then when you try them in the real world, maybe they don't work so good. You need to tweak this, you need to tweak that. So one of the things I think we should add to the list is to come up with some standards for oil change type facilities that are appropriate for oil change type facilities. That's just something to down the road to keep in mind. Sorry, Zach.
Yep, and as we worked with the owner through this process, there were some recommendations we made to layout configuration and that sort of thing that have been ultimately on the plan that they came up with. We met with them in a pre-application phase, talked about the site circulation, layout, and whatnot. And I'm glad to say that the suggestions that Brent and I would have had along the way have been incorporated into this plan. Were we to have specific use requirements for oil changes, I think this plan would probably satisfy the things that we would probably require.
It would probably look like that.
It probably look very much like that. It's a typical layout and configuration for a similar use around the community. So that being said, I've already described the surrounding land uses, the zoning, and the process I believe we should take to approve this project or not approve this project, to process this project. In terms of the building location and site arrangement, as you can see, it's a fairly typical, straightforward approach. There are 2 points of access, one on Heartland, one on Rochester, both of which are two-way. The parking configuration for the site is in the rear yard, which complies with our ordinance, which does not allow parking in the front yard in a GB district, so there's no parking there. You can see the building is rear entry, which would be on the east facade. Vehicles circulate around to the back, filter through, and then empty out onto Rochester for a right turn only, of course, because this is a boulevarded area of Rochester Road. Or they can circulate out onto Heartland and then ultimately make a right turn onto Rochester from there. So there's 2 points of egress. You can see that there's a waste receptacle, a dumpster enclosure at the northeast corner of the property there, where it would be convenient for vehicles to get in and out. And the employee parking is along the back. They do have a screening treatment along the area there. I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. Along the south facade, if you've been out to the site, you know that that's building there. There's the back of the strip mall building is there with a little service area. They've got egress doors along that side, but not a lot of activity there. What they really have is just a long wall that goes almost all the way out to Rochester Road. That strip mall goes right out to the street there. In terms of area, width, height, and setbacks, this building does meet or exceed all of our requirements. You'll know that under the new zoning ordinance, our minimum setback is only 10 feet on both Heartland and on Rochester Road in this area. He's at approximately 60 feet for Rochester and at about 30 feet for Heartland there. The side setback to the south is a 20-foot minimum. There's 21-foot setback reserved there. The dimension is perpendicular to the building. I think that that dimension should be perpendicular to the lot line, but still, by my scale, it was still greater than 20 feet. So they still meet the 20-foot setback requirement there, possibly that dimension. And then a final plan, if we can see that in scale. The building is within the height requirement. You'll know that in the GB, it's a maximum of 5 stories or 75 feet. They're obviously well under that requirement. And in terms of open space, they reserve 26.5% of the site as open space, well in excess of our 20% requirement. Proposed parking for the site, a number of things that would apply to a vehicle repair station don't apply here. There is no tow truck. There is no overnight parking for vehicles under service. And the requirement for 2 additional spaces per bay, which is reserved for that overnight parking, is not really applicable here. What I believe is applicable here are the bay spaces and then employee spaces. So you do have a requirement for 2 spaces for each service bay, 3 bays equaling 6 spaces, plus 1 space for each tow truck, as I mentioned, not applicable here. Plus adequate spaces for overnight parking, also not applicable. Plus 1 space per 1 employee on the largest typical shift. This was not reflected in the number of employees on the first iteration of the plan, but having discussed it with the applicant, it's estimated that there'll be 4 employees on a largest typical shift. And the way they do this is there's, if you've ever been to a quick oil change, they might have 3 bays, but you've got 1 or 2 guys downstairs that are bouncing back and forth serving more than 1 vehicle, and you've got 1 or 2 guys upstairs doing the same thing. So a smaller crew can manage a number of vehicles. The ordinance doesn't specifically say whether or not the bay itself qualifies as a parking space. I believe that in this case it should, because we don't need 2 additional spaces outside of here. If you've been to an oil change, you know that the customer stays in their car. I believe that the bay itself should qualify as a parking space here. So we've got a space reserved for the vehicle under repair or being serviced in the bay, and then we've got a row of parking where an additional vehicle could be, and then we've also got adequate parking for the customer or for the employees. So there's 7 spaces, one of which is a barrier-free, which the barrier-free space is located. It's the most proximate or probably the most convenient to the actual the man doors to the building, which not a lot of people go into those doors. There may be occasion for it. They have a small booth area, lobby in the front there, but largely people will stay in their cars. So I'm comfortable that the 10 provided parking spaces, which includes the 3 bays, is adequate, more than adequate to serve this facility. In my observation, other oil changes around have even fewer parking spaces than that, and seem to function just fine. As I mentioned, site access and circulation, vehicular circulation I'm comfortable with. Pedestrian circulation, there's not a lot of pedestrian destination on this site. What they have done is provided sidewalks as required along Heartland and along Rochester. There are no pedestrian connections in and around the site itself, other than there being an apron, a pedestrian apron at the entrances to the building there. But I don't think that a dedicated crosswalk or anything is necessary in this case, because there's really no good place to put it, and it's really not something that's useful to this site. And there doesn't really need to be dedicated sidewalks. There's no landscape adjacent to the building itself because here it's pavement up to the building because this building is designed to service automobiles. So I'm comfortable that the pedestrian access they provided around the site will help connect the site. Right now on Harlan there is no sidewalk at all, so this will help those single-family homeowners that are back in that neighborhood be connected to Rochester Road. So there is a pedestrian access benefit to this project after all, even though the site use itself is not being directly pedestrianized. Natural resources, there's really nothing here to comment on. Lighting, a photometric plan was not provided, although the applicant has provided lighting fixture details and location. The lighting levels can't exceed a 1/10 of a foot candle along residentially zoned or used property, which isn't applicable here. We've got the Masonic Lodge immediately to the east, and we've got commercial uses north and south in Rochester in the other direction to the west. So light can exceed, it can be up to 1 foot candle along those non-residential property boundaries. I'm comfortable given the fixtures that they've proposed that they'll be meeting that. Although the applicant didn't have time to prepare a photometric plan. So one of the suggested conditions, should the application be forwarded by the Planning Commission for approval, or be approved by the Planning Commission, would be a condition that we get a final photometric plan that complies with zoning ordinance requirements. In terms of landscaping, there's a number of things to talk about. It does include landscape details on the site plan. This is an acceptable approach as it does provide all the information we require on a separate or dedicated landscape plan. Other than a couple of areas where typically maybe, although there's no ordinance requirement to show it, typically we're used to there being a table, saying, well, this is how many trees are required on the street. This is, if that's something that ultimately they were able to do on the final version of the revised plan, that would be great. However, I'm able to do the calculations and note that they've been met. A 10-foot green belt is required along the public street frontages. It has been provided. In terms of street trees, they're one deciduous tree short along Rochester Road, just given the length of it. I'm not sure maybe what happened there, but what a lot of applicants have done is they deduct the width of the drive, and if you had done that, they would be 1 tree shy. But if our ordinance specifically says that you don't deduct that tree, that space for the drive, so they need to add 1 deciduous tree along Rochester. They have adequate trees along Harlan. The minimum landscaped area, as I said, has been exceeded by 6.5%. Parking lot landscaping, the site's only 7 surface spaces, so it doesn't qualify for the islands or any of those requirements. What it does, up to 8 spaces requires 1 tree. There is a tree, an unrequired tree that's adjacent out here. In fact, there's 2 along the south facade, so they exceed their parking lot landscaping requirements by providing that perimeter tree. In terms of screening, they've selected screening option 1, which is defined in table 1302A for the east boundary. That is one of the acceptable and desirable treatments in our new landscaping screening section, so I'm comfortable that what they propose meets our ordinance and is what we've called for in our ordinance. In terms of submittal requirements, the application, the provided plans that were given to us in the office are signed and sealed. The digital copy, I know there's questions about the signing and sealing of digital copies, and Mr. Stratt brought that to our attention in the office. Maybe we can have a discussion about that in the future, but the actual plans that were submitted to the office were signed and sealed and prepared appropriately. There's a couple of pieces of information that were not provided in the plan, although they're not necessarily salient to our decision making, so I've made note of them, and a revised copy of the plan that ultimately they would need to provide to satisfying the conditions we might place on the plan. I would like to see these addressed. One is that a topographic survey hasn't been prepared. Now, I've been to the site. It's flat, level, empty. There's nothing there to really consider, but a topographic survey is typically required. Stormwater detention, no information was provided with regard to stormwater detention, although the engineering department has reviewed this project on other means, but the actual site plan doesn't make any mention of stormwater detention. I'm not aware of what the stormwater detention requirements or how it's being satisfied here, but the engineering department felt comfortable saying they had no comments on the project.
It's a pretty big drain up and down Rochester.
Yeah, Rochester Road. So I think that they're okay there. I just don't want to speak out of turn on something I could be potentially wrong about. The indication of driveways within 100 feet, there is a driveway across the street that's not shown that probably is within 100 feet of the site. Typically we like to see that, so that's required by the ordinance to show other driveways within 100 feet, even if they're across the street. Heartland is a really narrow street, and there is a driveway. It's kind of over here going to the first house that's across from the Masonic Lodge. We would like to see that on the plan. I mentioned before the calculations on the landscape plan. Those are not necessarily required, but they're desirable. And then preliminary grading plans, grading information, which probably come hand in hand with their topo survey. And then, as I mentioned, the photometrics. So you can see the only real thing on there from a policy perspective that probably we would, really get any meat out of is a photometric plan. But as I said, I feel comfortable that they can comply, and especially if we ask them to attach a photometric plan that complies to ordinance standards, it can always be revised, and we can withhold administrative approval of the conditions if they don't meet when they provide us with a photometric. Lastly, talking about the special use request and how it affects the special use standards. As I mentioned, there are no specific use standards that apply to this use, but there are the general use standards for anything that's under Article 9. So there's a few: compatibility with adjacent uses, designed and constructed in a manner harmonious with the character, the usual thing there. This is an automobile service facility. We've got car washes, gas stations, many uses in a light category up and down Rochester Road. This is an appropriate use, in my opinion, and it is compatible with what's going on Rochester Road. Compatibility with the master plan. This special use has to be compatible and in accordance with the goals and objectives of the Tri-Master Plan. It is common to regional commercial areas. Rochester Road is a regional commercial area. The master plan does talk about stormwater mitigation. It talks about a variety of uses along Rochester Road. It talks about pedestrian amenities in that. They have increased and improved pedestrian amenities. They are providing a use that complies with the type of districts that's encouraged for this area. So I believe it complies with the master plan. Traffic impact. The nature of this use is one that it doesn't necessarily have as acute peak traffic times as something like an office does, a 9 to 5 situation or something. This will probably be busy at various times of the day, busier in the evening maybe than others, but I don't perceive this to have any more, in fact, you're talking 10 minutes per customer. You're not talking about the kind of volume of, say, a gas station or anything. I don't anticipate any traffic impact that would go above or beyond any other appropriate use in the district. Public services, there should be nothing besides, any use that's normally experienced in this district, during construction, and then after that, I don't anticipate there being anything different. Zoning compliance standards, just a few pieces of information. Other than that, they do comply with all the elements of the zoning ordinance. Generally required for planning commission consideration for special use are, whether or not the nature and character is going to be, anything that fits in the area. I believe it is. Vehicular circulation, parking, those requirements are all met. There's no outdoor storage. The hours of operation is not as much of an issue in this place. You've got restaurants and things that are open till the middle of the night all around here, 24-hour gas stations, and that I'm not concerned about the hours of operation. There is residential down Heartland there, but I can't imagine, we could ask the applicant this, but I can't imagine this will be open until, well into the evening. Oil change operations a lot of times close at like 7 or 8, something that's appropriate for the region, the regional corridor there. Traffic noise, vibration, smoke fumes shouldn't be anything beyond any additional impact after initial construction. So all that being said, that I ultimately recommend that the Planning Commission support the project and approve it, conditional on some of the things that are mentioned in my report and were forwarded to you in the proposed resolution. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Mr. Edmonds? I'm just wondering, maybe perhaps the applicant could let us know, but quite often, I think with oil change facilities, there's a situation with oil and water separation with used oil, and it doesn't get into the storm drain and things like that. Has that already been addressed by the engineering department? Or?
I believe that would be addressed by the engineering department, but I'm sure the applicant would be happy to speak. There are standards in place for those, for separators and things.
Because I know we've had a few hiccups in the past in this situation.
Yeah, I'm sure the applicant could probably actually speak with greater authority than I could.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Craig?
Question for Zach. In your report, you stated it's a one-story building, 28 feet high, 4 inches. Is that because it's only listed as 1 story because the second story is considered storage space or attic, or how does it?
It's, let me see here. Yeah, I guess, well, you know what? I guess it's technically in that one area, I guess it technically is an office. We can ask the applicant, but I assume because of the way that the cross is that it's actually open space in terms of the large part of the building. But I guess you're right, the office does, there is a stairwell and it is there. But regardless, it's within the confines of the ordinance, which allows 75 feet, so. Thanks. Anything further at this time? All right, would you like to make your presentation?
Absolutely.
Please step at the podium there and tell us who you are and go ahead with your presentation.
Good evening. My name is Chris Enright. I'm an architect. I'm not the architect for this project. My role in this project is assisting the current landowner, who is Mr. Robert Guerreri and Mr. Kelly Essman. Mr. Essman's here this evening. I'm also assisting the new business owner, or the eventual buyer of the property, Mr. Issa. He will own the building and operate the facility. This will be the 9th project for Mr. Issa, and he owns 8 other developments across Michigan and Ohio, all very similar to this. I work do a lot of work with a local tire retailer, and so when it comes to special use projects, we understand the sensitivity and the issues with automotive service and the intricacies with automotive service, and we put in a position a lot of giving detailed explanations as to outdoor storage, what do we do with tires, parts, oil, what happens with the oil, what kind of environmental issues do we have, et cetera, et cetera. There's the other issues of noise, specifically when it comes to an automotive use. As Mr. Brannigan and Mr. Savidan were discussing with us, this building doesn't really fall into any one of those categories that they so aptly pointed out. And when they were talking about the car wash issue, which I think I agree with, that's probably the closest. However, as we've all seen, we get our car washed in the wintertime with the salt. A lot of times, especially during the weekends, you get these long queues of vehicles during weather elements. And the same thing is almost true with the automotive repair. When it comes to winter conditions or when the frost comes out, they get a lot of flat tires, things of that nature. So they're actually weak in time and graph when we have large amounts of customers at one particular time. The oil change business, however, is quite different. There really isn't any season for it. It's just sort of a thing that each individual owner will do to their vehicle. So they estimate, based on their business, it's around 40 cars a day is typically what they have for that they graft along with all their sites. So they're open, well, not every day. They're open 6 days a week from 8 in the morning until 6 at night. So they close at 6 p.m. On Sundays, they're open from 10 until 3. So there's 10 hours a day during the week, 40 cars, 4 cars, 5 cars, no cars an hour sometimes. So it's a very low volume business in terms of activity. So traffic, vehicular conflicts, if there might be any, even as we go into the later hours with vehicles turning with headlights and whatnot, since they close early and the volume of traffic is such, it really is a very low impact business to the surrounding areas. We understand that it's mostly general commercial that's surrounding. However, we're sensitive to our future customers down the street with it's somewhat in a residential area. So really from a practicality point of view in terms of a commercial business, I think it's a pretty good fit. There are 4 to 5 employees at the location at any given time. As was described by Mr. Brannigan, there are a couple of people down below, a couple of people up top, service and sales individuals. Obviously plenty of parking for them. No vehicles are left overnight. There really isn't any repair. We've all been through this process, or I know some of you has. There's just windshield wipers, air filters, that kind of thing. Anything that can be done within 10 to 15 minutes, cars are gone. There are no reasons whatsoever to leave a vehicle overnight, whether it be indoors or outdoors. The issue regarding the oil, as I brought up the parts and whatnot, there will be an underground oil separator. So all of the internal drains of the facility will drain into the separator, and then it's separated out, and the wastewater then goes into the sanitary system. There will be no real risk of any oil or pollutants getting into the stormwater system or to the watershed. It all goes into the sanitary system. There'll be a regular routine schedule clean out for the oil interceptor. So, and being that it's below grade, getting into the stormwater system really is even less of a chance of that happening. The second story, the upper level issue, that will really be a mezzanine, quote unquote. It's not a second story. Per the building code, we're allowed up to 1/3 of the floor plan as long as it's open to the space below for quote unquote mezzanine. Now, that's not counted as a second story in the zoning ordinance or the building code, but it is counted for the square footage of the overall facility. So technically, it's not a second story. It's really would be a mezzanine, there's a stair going up to it. And the materials of the building are brick all the way around, standing seam metal, all quality materials. The photometric, although it wasn't provided, one of the things that we were looking at in the beginning as we met with staff was that we were looking at the potential for a variance for this, being that the use exceeded the minimum 20,000, or we didn't meet the minimum 20,000 square foot for the property. We're less than that. So we were anticipating a variance process up until the latter part of last week. So that with a special use, there are a number of unknowns, and that was why the survey and the preliminary engineering wasn't done up front. We had a legal description of the property, and it was deemed as a platted piece, and being that we weren't in danger of any setback, height, or issues violating that for another variance, we were just planning on using that template to get an answer through special use and hopefully through the variance. It was for some reason, this project, when we put the bids out for the engineering and the survey, was expensive, rather expensive. So it was going to be around $10,000 for us to do the engineering and the survey work, and that with the other fees and the other open issues that were unanswered. That's why that wasn't done. If had we known that in the beginning of the variance issue, I probably would have just gone ahead and done it because, as you said, there really aren't any major issues with the engineering or the survey. It's fairly standard stuff. With that, if you have any questions.
I can see Mr. Enright's comments have caused a few people to scratch their head. The 20,000 square foot requirement he's talking to were if we applied 6.26, which is the full specific use conditions for an automobile overnight repair facility. And that's why I gave that sort of verbose description of why I don't think those standards apply in this case. So once we made that determination with the zoning administrator and staff, we then informed Mr. Enright, who then said, oh, well, okay, now we don't have to go for a variance from that square foot requirement. That's where that comes from.
Yeah, just for some additional background, when we met with the applicant months ago, you know, at least myself, I try to slot things, like what type of use it is. I probably mentioned it's automotive repair. Being a professional that he is, Mr. Enright said, well, at minimum 20,000 square feet, we're going to need a variance. Well, when we delve further into the application, it's really not automotive repair. We advertise it as such because you gotta peg it as something for notification requirements, but it really isn't automotive repair. It's kind of its own specific animal.
In fact, a true automotive repair facility is a more intense use because of the outdoor storage issue and all that, and this being less intense, we've actually advertised it for what we felt was a more intense use, so that was a conservative approach on our part to make sure that it was notified as as intense a use as you could possibly classify it as. Any other questions? Mr. Stroud?
Yeah, you mentioned that you're not the architect of record.
Correct.
I know who the architect of record is.
Architectural design and construction.
Pardon me?
Architectural design and construction.
Now, who is the architect, not the firm?
Oh, his name is Mustafa.
Okay, I have another, I may continue on. I have a suggestion, I don't know if it's within your realm or not, but on the northwest corner, there's a radius there at the drive. And I'm wondering, our main objective is to try to create as much green space as we possibly can. It seems to me that there's no parking along that whole side area as indicated on it. Why that arc couldn't be increased and create a larger area for that corner section so that it would be actually a much larger radius there. I think that if that would be acceptable, that would be a recommendation. First of all, you'd be saving in terms of the amount of hard surface area you have for storm drainage, etc. We're creating a larger green area for ourselves. So that's a recommendation that I would make. And I noted, although it's not a part of our preview, where you are indicating or where the proposed sign is indicated, it's illegal. It's not in the proper setback requirements as it relates to our zoning order, or our sign ordinance, 15 feet back in each direction and on diagonal. So it does not it encroaches on that. But again, it's not into our area, so I'm just making a comment on that. Those are the two areas. that I have concern on.
Mr. Schultz?
Building on Mr. Stratt's comment about that internal arc, what I was looking at is based on the sign position, and that will be up to staff to take care of that. But I can understand the sign being at 90 degrees to the road because Rochester Road is one way there. What I was looking at was whether the required trees can be moved further to the east so that the petitioner's sign is more visible from Rochester Road. If that arc were flared out, those three required trees that are going to be to the north side of that drive could be moved further to the east, which would give them a better sight line to their sign, which I would think would be important to their business.
Thank you. Anything else at this time? Mr. Tagle?
I wonder if you could explain the building lettering. What's intended for that?
The signage
On the building.
on the actual building itself? I mean,
It's going to be channel lettering, individual channel lettering, like aluminum
Sir,
based.
so if you want to answer a question, please come to the microphone. We can hear you easier.
As of right now, I mean, just the concept of it's going to be like channel lettering, like individual lettering sign, you know, lit up, that lights up.
Is that true also for the magical touch portion of the sign?
Yes, we just did that on the plan just to show it, but I mean, obviously we still, you know, got to design it the right way and stuff like that.
Second question, you show some light fixtures on the building, wall sconces.
Yeah.
Could you describe what kind of fixtures those are?
Basically, those fixtures, I don't know what they call them, you know, but I mean, they're covered from the front, but they show from the front, from the top and the bottom. Yeah.
All right.
It's very decorative
Sconce.
Sconce,
It's a
yeah.
sconce, it's not like what they call as a wall pack where the light.
No, it
just
just reflects on the street. You know.
Mr. Hudson?
Yeah, let me follow up on Mr. Tagel's comment regarding the signs. You indicated they would be illuminated. Are you talking neon or LEDs or lettering with illumination by UPS or something similar?
I mean, obviously they're box like letterings. They wish to look they're out of aluminum, and now they don't use the neon no more. Instead, they use the LED lights in them, so they don't break, like no more glass or nothing inside.
Okay, and these LED,
I think I know where you're going with
well,
this.
see if you can. Go
Okay,
ahead.
you go ahead.
Are these LEDs to be variable in their light intensity and color?
Obviously, they're going to have a cover over them, so it's going to be covered. Like each letter is it's covered. So I mean, I'm not the sign guy or nothing like that, how they do them or nothing like that, but it's usually like channel lettering, like you can see like Wendy's, you know, McDonald's, like that.
The bulb won't be visible. This is the kind of sign where you've got an aluminum plate and the light is back here, and so it glows around the perimeter of the aluminum channel. So that's what he's talking about, channel lighting.
standard channel backlit
Yeah.
sign.
If they are LED lights.
I believe so.
Yeah, they will be
They'll
LED.
be LEDs, yeah.
Mr. Stratt, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was just gonna caution you on your concept of saying this is just a conceptual. What we're looking at here is a final, we're not
Yeah.
looking at concepts, so be careful when you're saying it's conceptual, because that's not what we're looking at, or our intent is not to have that here.
Yeah.
I know that the sign, though, is not a part of our preview right now. Hopefully in the future, it will be part of our responsibility.
Mr. Sanzika?
Yeah, I know it's all very low use, but I was just curious about the stacking, automobile stacking. And are there any requirements for sites like this for stacking the vehicles?
The worst case scenario would be to apply the standard of a car wash. And a car wash requires one stacking space per 15 feet of length or 10 feet of length. I don't know off the top of my head. Yeah, of the booth, of the lane. So, you know, applying, let's say that it was 10 feet, for instance. If it was 10 feet, which would be the most extreme, you've got I can see that the length of the building there is 34 feet. You know, for times 3 bays, you're looking at about 100 feet. That would require 10 stacking spaces. If you look at the space that he has to the south of the building, all the way around, and then feeding into the back, you could more than easily fit 10 stacking vehicles there. So, I felt comfortable, you know, with the amount of space for stacked vehicles.
Mr. Taylor?
What do you know about the stormwater detention or retention for this project? Have you looked at the engineering of that, and what is the concept going to be?
It'll have to be underground.
Okay.
So whether it be in chambers or pipes, it's going to be, that's where it's going to have to go.
Mr. Stratt?
Yeah, Mr. Tagle stole my thunder, but that The other issue that I wanted to express is if that arch was actually really increased and a green area, that's an opportune time for you to use some stormwater management. Bioswale, as an example, would be an excellent opportunity there. And it could be a nice feature, not just a little swale. I'm talking about making it so that it's an attraction, so that it could be incorporated with your sign. So it could be really a real feature. That's the kind of thing that we're looking for.
Yeah, one of the engineers that we're hoping to use in this project has done several of those projects. We've done a couple bioswales before, so and that curve, the additional area for the green space, I think is a great suggestion. It's something we will employ, sort of, because that asphalt out there is completely, really not of any value.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on Mr. Stratt's comments. That's actually one of the characteristics of the Rochester Road Future Land Use category is enhanced stormwater management above and beyond typical requirements. So you might remember that if you look at the master plan, the Rochester Road corridor is described as something that's sort of a showcase for innovative, small approaches to stormwater management because of our sort of legacy of stormwater management issues along Rochester Road. So we would strongly encourage you to consider that, even a small token feature, or something that could be as much a demonstration of how you can incorporate a feature like that into a property that's automobile dominated. It'd be a very positive attribute of the project.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was referring to.
We need to conduct a public hearing on this matter. If you gentlemen could just have a seat and just come back, please. Thank you. We'll open the public hearing on this matter. Is anyone present wishes to speak regarding this item? Don't say no, that's a very quick public hearing. We'll bring it back to the table and continue our discussion. Is there further questions, comments on this item?
Mr. Chairman, this may be for my identification or maybe the general public out in TV land. That's a question for our attorney. When we have a special use granted, and this is unconditional, I take it, if some other business, if they cease doing business, let's say 30 years from now, and with this special use granted as an automotive repair, so an automotive repair could come in, is that, or am I going up the wrong alley on this?
You're asking if the special use would limit the facility to automobile repair?
Well, because we don't have a specific category, I guess it's been defined as automotive repair, so.
But the special use approval would be specific to this business. Yeah, it would run with the land, but it would be very specific to this particular business. So it wouldn't allow an automobile repair facility other than what's approved by this board.
Mr. Krentz on the ball, because the resolution, I would suggest to change the resolution. I should have caught this morning. Site plan, yada proposed vehicle repair facility. And I suggest striking that out and calling it an oil change facility. You're on, good catch, good catch.
Mr. Schultz?
Just a comment on the south side of the drive as it comes in off Rochester Road. If the petitioner had any extra trees that could cover up the north side of that shopping center directly adjacent to his property, which is probably one of the most unattractive sites in the city, that would be very nice. I know we can't ask for it, but that would be wonderful. Other than that, are we ready for a resolution?
I believe so. Is there any additional comments before a resolution? Go ahead, Mr. Stratt.
Yeah, can't we tack that in as a part of our approval process? Since it's a special use approval?
The radius of the...
Radius and also the, what Mr. Schultz just said, additional trees required along the south side.
Certainly.
Is that, am I right or wrong? Special use you can tack on
Yes.
conditions, such as that.
Reasonable
conditions.
They're reasonable. I'm sorry. Legal counsel.
Okay, I need a second.
Is there a second, Mr. Sanzi?
No, I need a second.
Oh, sorry. We'll give you all the time you need, Mr. Schultz. We always need a second for the resolution.
How many trees and what size?
Don't worry, Tom.
I'll take that. Okay. 45 trees in there.
Yeah, it's a forest.
Is there any further questions, Manuel, at this time? You all set on that?
Okay, I'm ready.
Go ahead, Mr. Schultz.
Resolved, special use approval and preliminary site plan approval for the proposed oil change facility, Magic Touch Oil Change, southeast corner of Rochester Road in Heartland, 1028 Heartland, section 23, currently zoned GB General Business District, be granted subject to the following. 1, provide a photometric plan per ordinance. 2, satisfy landscape requirements as follows. A, add 1 deciduous tree on Rochester Road. B, provide detailed landscape calculations showing how all requirements of section 13.2 have been met. Item 3, provide outstanding submittal information on a revised site plan necessary for preliminary site plan and special use approval. 4, change the radius of the northwest interior curb. And 5, add additional trees along the south perimeter line. Item 5 will be that items 1 through, that's 4 and 5. Item 6 shall be, items 1 through 6 shall be subject to administrative review and approval.
Is the language on the radius sufficient? Second, Mr. Sanzika. Any discussion on the motion, Mr. Strata?
Yeah, would the motion creator consider putting something in there as it relates to the stormwater management in that radius area? It could be creative with some.
A rain garden, bioswale.
Bioswale is not what I was looking for. I was looking for a little bit larger than.
A rain garden.
Yeah, what?
Rain garden.
No, really something a little bit larger than a bioswale, but a bioswale would be sufficient.
Well, I'd like to hear a comment from the petitioner regarding that also. Do you have any comment regarding that request?
Well, yeah, only that we're open to the suggestion. We'd like to see it done, but I don't know if engineering-wise, if it's exactly possible to be in that regard. In other words, I don't want to have a declaration of here tonight and then realize it's not possible.
I would say I'm not certain of the grading of the site too, Mr. Strand.
I think that at least 1/3 of the site, or if not a quarter of the site in that section, could be actually surface drainage to that corner. Do you agree?
Yes.
And it could, it would be one catch basin there, but it would be a catch basin that would be probably required anyway. I don't think it would be adding unless, and I think engineering-wise, I think it could be accomplished. It could be accomplished. I don't see a problem with that at all.
How does everybody feel about making that a condition? I'm not sure if I want to have that type of, it seems that we have a little bit of unknown.
I would have no problem making that a suggestion. I would not make it a condition.
I feel the same way. I think a suggestion would be appropriate.
I have no problem suggesting that the petitioner look at that, but I think not having topos or anything else on the site, making it a condition for approval, I don't think I could support that with the information we have tonight.
Mr. Evans?
I would also agree with Mr. Schultz, but I thought it was encouraged to hear the applicant say that they have had, the architect has had experience with doing that type of thing. So I think that would be a strong suggestion that they consider that, incorporate that in the plan. But I agree, I don't think it has to be a requirement.
Will we be seeing the site plan before it's
will be administratively approved, the way the resolution is written.
Sorry if we're adding that. You're willing to add a suggestion then, Mr. Schultz, to that regard?
I have no problem amending the resolution to add an item 6 to say that this planning commission strongly suggests that the petitioner look at a bioswale or rain garden in the northwest corner of the property.
Right. Does that accept Mr. Sanzika? All right, is there any further discussion on the motion? Vote on the motion, please. Do you have something to say?
I'm just thinking, putting a suggestion into the resolution is a paper tiger. I don't know why we want to confuse the issue with the suggestion. I will take the petitioner's word that you've got the expertise, and we'll look into it, but I'm opposed to amending the resolution to include a suggestion.
Oh, I don't see any problem with the suggestion. It just allows us to express our opinion. We don't really have, I don't think, all the necessary information to make a qualified final decision on that. A certain suggestion is appropriate. If you'd like to separate that out and have a vote on an amendment, we can do that. Or we can let it pass.
No, I'd like to suggest that we separate it out. Let's vote on
All right, well, we'll have
the suggestion.
You want to suggest that as an amendment, Mr. Carlson?
Well, I don't want to suggest it as an amendment at all.
What if the vote, if there's an amendment to Mr. Schultz's motion, you want to say
That was amended by Mr. Schultz and seconded?
I said I could agree to that.
Well, we
Was it
were
seconded?
informally adding that to the original
Why don't we
motion.
have Mr. Schultz propose that as an amendment to the main resolution and second and vote on that one?
Can we just
Because if
erase
it's
the
coming
tape and
out
start
as
over?
just- I'm going to vote down the whole thing, and I don't think that's
Well,
fair.
what we do is we would, since it's become, we're at this point, I would suggest separating out that suggestion and as an amendment.
Let me do this. I will withdraw the revision to my original motion.
Okay, we can do that as
Do you support that?
I support.
Okay.
If someone would like to make a suggestion, they're welcome to do so.
All right. Now back to the first motion. Anything else on that? All right, we'll vote on the original motion without the suggestion.
Mr. Maxwell?
Yes.
Mr. Zanzika?
Yes.
Mr. Shepke?
Yes.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
Mr. Stratt?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Krantz?
Yes.
Great, the motion passes and welcome. Your business does well. We're excited. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
No problem. If you have any questions, give me a call.
I will. That's been good. Thanks.
Do we know when this might be built?
That's right.
Do they want to proceed right away? Is that the plans?
They're planning on, from here, going forward directly to Highland Engineering, getting their bids together. So as quick as weather will permit and their financing and all, it should be, I would say, probably 4 or 5 months, we'll be able to get you an oil change.
Thank you very much. Good night. All right, next is item 6, public comments for items on the current agenda. Is there anyone here present wishing to comment on items on the agenda? Okay, so we'll have the comments. We'll move on to item 7, planning commission comments. Mr. Sabat, do you have any comments this evening?
Nothing, no comments. Well done tonight.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I just wanted to introduce the young woman behind me. This is Shu Yang. Shu is from the University of Michigan. She's a first-year Master's of Planning student, and she's my sidekick for the day. So she came to experience the Planning Commission meeting here, and she's been with me all day, and had a couple meetings. We took an extensive tour of Troy. We probably bored her to death. But anyway, I just wanted to introduce you, and she could say hi.
Oh, welcome.
Welcome. Nice to see you.
Thanks for coming. Do you have any questions or ask?
No.
Thank you.
Not to put you on the
Thank
spot or
you.
anything. But yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Mrs. Sarnecki?
No.
Mr. Sanzi?
I just wondered, maybe we have a short discussion on suggestions and motions.
Okay.
And maybe Ms. Mossy could comment. Is that, I don't ever recall doing that. I'm just curious.
Oh, we've done it. It's been in
We used to do something called design
Considerations.
considerations, but really they didn't hold a lot of water, but
Good
as
enough.
Justin said, they weren't binding, but,
So a comment probably would be more
yeah.
helpful than a suggestion or something.
It's the same effect.
Same effect, yeah. All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Shefty?
The only thing that confused me a little bit, looking at this, when you look at this kind of a plan view, or it's actually a site drawing, is the elevations and the slopes and where the required drains and everything are at before you come up with pitching it to one corner or wherever. It might not mechanically be feasible to do that in a trouble-free manner, to go with some of them quite a distance unless there's, this is figured in the grades and the slopes and the property itself on the asphalt. So, that was worrying me a little bit.
Thank you. Mr. Evans?
No comment, thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Schultz.
I'd like to welcome Mr. Shepke and congratulate Mr. Ullman.
Mr. Tay?
Nothing.
Mr. Grant?
Well, just a couple quick things. I think the suggestion thing is good to have because it shows on the record that this was our opinion. It doesn't need, again, it's non-binding, but at least it shows our discussion as part of the record. And the other thing I did want to say is, I think, for me personally, I'm going to solely miss Lon Ullman. He's a dynamo for understanding hydrology. And since Troy used to be more or less swamp, he was an integral part of bringing forth very important discussions and very, very good answers. Anyway, I think that's something to be had.
Very good. Now, Mr. Stratt?
Yeah, I have a couple of comments I'd like to make. In light of the fact that we're trying to expedite projects going through, I was going to vote no against this project because, number one, I wanted to ask if the applicant has a checklist of the things of the requirement prior to coming here. And why are we constantly going through this problem of missing this, missing that? You know, I can understand we're trying to work with and try to expedite. That's the reason why I voted for it. Otherwise, I would have voted against it. Because the seal is important to me. The landscaping, the photometrics is very important to me as well, as you know. And those are key issues that I'd like to see in advance so that I can study them, as well as some of the comments and some of the other things that could be. I know that we asked for the actual cuts on the lights, and I think you explained that very well. It appears that that is correct, but of course we don't know that until they actually submit. But I'm sure that while it goes through the process, that you're going to make sure that that does occur and those things they are met, the requirements. But I think that's the whole purpose. If we're going to not have those be a part of the requirement, let's take it off. Let's not have it, because it's not the first time that these things have been missed. That's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Edson.
Yeah, Bert gave me a good segue earlier when we were discussing if this was special use in automotive repair or car wash or whatever. We're coming up on the 5th year of our master plan, and by statute, we're required to review it to make some comments. And I'm thinking this is one area that we should be taking a look at, and maybe just a heads up to all of us. If there's any other areas that we've experienced during this process, start making note of that so when we have a discussion concerning review, we're prepared.
Thank you, Mr. Edson. And Mr. Mastin? Well, it was a very nice meeting, a very good meeting this evening. Appreciate all the participation and very professional as always. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.
Could you all shut your